There are sort of two common threads. One is to take people deep into a story and sort of forensically take it apart. And what documentary does so well, and what I love about doing this kind of work, especially at this kind of length, is that you can really immerse people in a story. And it's the antithesis of the sort of 2-minute video on YouTube or whatever, that's becoming more and more the way that people find stuff out. Well, I want people to get immersed in a it's complicated story, because the world is incredibly complicated, probably getting more so. It was commissioned as a 2-hour piece, and then I presented a just under 5-hour rough cut to HBO.
Yeah, wow.
And anticipated a reaction like, "You must be kidding, take it away and cut it down to 2 hours." But they watched it, and I had to say to Nancy Abraham at HBO, who's really supported this project from the very start, bear with me, keep faith. It might be 4 hours. And what do you think? And it's 4 hours because it's the history of two families over 20 years.
Right.
And it's only by telling that story and threading the themes through the story and building the characters and getting to know the family and getting to know the relationships and understanding what happened, that you can really understand why it was that Wade changed his story, and how it was that the sexual abuse at the hands of Michael Jackson manifested itself, why he didn't understand what it was, and how it all happened in the greatest detail. And I think the 4-hour kind of platform is kind of the shortest way we can tell the story. The most explicit descriptions, I think, are in the film. There's just like other stuff, but I mean, we didn't omit anything of any significance at all. It seems that Michael Jackson's sexual routine with children had a pattern, and those patterns were repeated. I think you can see that from the film. It's incredibly graphic, and I justify that by saying that if we had passed over those details, or kind of fade to black and then fade up at the end of the sex scene, people might not have been convinced that child sexual abuse actually happened. Whereas the line between affectionate contact, cuddling, and having sex with a child, and I think we had to make it really that graphic, and it's difficult for the audience, and it's incredibly difficult for the guys. And I'm just, every time I watch those scenes, I'm full of admiration for their courage. But it's a tough watch, and people should be aware of that before they start. I think to call a 4-hour documentary a tabloid piece is eccentric, and perhaps shows that they haven't watched it, or they're not familiar with the content. Uncorroborated allegations, well, this is something that happened in a bed, in a room, behind a closed door, between a child and Michael Jackson. You can disbelieve the guys if you want. I think the portrait of the impact of what happened and the story of how it happened, for me, there are no omissions, there are no sort of holes in their accounts. Their accounts are entirely credible and internally consistent, and their whole families are involved. And if they were not telling the truth, to stage this kind of charade with their entire families and their mothers devastated, I mean, for people to fake that is inconceivable. If you watch the film, it's inconceivable, and this is why there's a dividing line between people who've watched the movie and people who haven't. They've chosen to speak because they want to make things better with their sons, and that's the main motivation. They have no other motivation for doing something which is going to get them in for a lot of criticism, I think, because from parents, or just astonishment. But I think a lot of people will also give them a huge amount of credit for having the courage to speak out. For Stephanie says, I had one job, I had one son, and I fucked up. And that's an incredibly powerful thing to hear for any parents who've had that experience. There are probably hundreds of thousands of parents out there just in the United States whose children have been abused and who've played that role, who've been unwitting accomplices in the abuse of their child. I think maybe there'll be a change in how Michael Jackson's music is used in public spaces and in spaces involving children. I think there will be more who will come forward. Maybe not, but I think my view is there are many more. And we know there are many more people, children at the time, who spent a lot of time with Michael and spent nights with Michael.
Right.
And it's, as Wade said in the Q&A yesterday, everyone has their own time. If they want to speak out, if there's something to speak out about, they have to come to it in their own time.